somehow, incredibly, it has been 9 years since Battlefield 1 came out. And I remember at the time playing the beta, I believe it was that summer of 2016, somewhere thereabouts, when that beta came out, and thinking that this game had a chance of being the best Battlefield game. And wouldn't you know it, 9 years later, I still think this is the best Battlefield game, so we're going to play some of it. It has been a little bit. I also have not played a huge amount of the PC version. I was a PS4 player at the time that this came out. But, you know, it's basically the same game, right? More or less. I do have most of the weapons unlocked. There's just a small handful that I'm missing that, I don't know, maybe someday I'll get them, but I got most of the ones that I wanted to unlock for each of the classes here. One thing that I always did in Battlefield 1 specifically, and I guess I did it in 5 as well, was I try to pick weapons that are historically appropriate to the faction that I'm playing, and sometimes the map as well. Sometimes that's really easy to do. Other times you do kind of have to approximate it a little bit. But I mostly do it just out of like a, I don't know, historical interest, or, I mean, if nothing else, it gets me to use a variety of weapons in the game. So I'm playing as the Americans. When you're a medic, you know, most of these are not American weapons. I think the auto-loading 835 is based off of a Browning, like, civilian hunting rifle or something like that. I don't quite remember. It's been a long time since I was looking into this stuff a little bit deeper. But, you know, I got the 1911, the U.S. trench knife, because of course. Hi. This was definitely a weapon I used quite a bit back when I was playing this game religiously every single day. It's got a nice fire rate. I do remember it bouncing around on the screen a decent amount, but it is pretty accurate from what I remember. And if you use the extended version, you do get a pretty sizable magazine on it, which helps if you do miss some shots. I was wondering how long it would be before I got killed by a Hellriegel, and as it turns out, not very long. That's another reason why you should branch out a little bit, because otherwise you're just going to use the Hellriegel every single match. And who wants to do that? Who wants to use the Call of Duty gun every single time you play? That sounds boring. I'm probably not going to be able to fend off whatever's happening at A, but I'll give it a go. Give it an honest try. Oh, right, I got smoke on this class, I forgot. Well, hopefully it'll help somebody. I do like that DICE's idea for, you know, how do we make cavalry valuable, or viable, I should say, not valuable, maybe valuable too, in a first-person shooter, given that you are going to be heavily exposed when you're just riding a horse through the battlefield. And their answer was, let's give them body armor and make them like 3 times as resistant to damage as everyone else. Like, sure, okay, well, makes sense. Same with the horse too. That's not what you want. I don't exactly have a ton of cover. There's also a lot of bad stuff happening behind me at B. This is a bad spot, but I need your friend. You have a smoke. I think one of my favorite things that this game did was make it so that you could toss health and ammo to teammates at the press of a button. I don't remember 4 having that. Maybe it did, but I definitely it's like that felt like a new thing to me in this game. I don't remember. Maybe 4 had it, but I'm not sure. I do remember in 4 that I mean, it was really up until this game, I was just dropping the boxes on the ground and letting people run past them. But this one definitely made it very easy to just toss those pouches to people. It's a lot of good UI indicators for when somebody needed health or ammo. That was a close one. This was never my favorite map, but the thing I will say, that felt like maybe I should have got him there. The thing I will say is I thought it was very funny when this location, I don't remember what this property is called, but this location shows up in The Gray Man, which was that not very good Netflix movie that came out a couple years ago. I was like, oh my god, I know. I've been there. I've been there many times. I have fought many battles in this location that they are now fighting a battle in. Which I don't think I realized until I watched that film that this was just like straight up a real place. It was weird though, because I felt like I had a weird amount of like spatial awareness in that scene of just knowing where the characters were. And it's like, oh yeah, if this guy goes down this hallway, he'll end up in the courtyard, and that's where the C flag is. And no. Is this guy gonna get me up? He may not want to. Yeah. I was about to say that might actually be to my detriment. We're gonna switch it up here. So another thing I like to do, since I liked playing all the classes, was I would usually fill in whatever the squad needed. We have a medic. I'm gonna switch over to support. We'll do a little support, and we'll take the Shosha, which was a personal favorite of mine in the support class in this game. Yeah. This thing, I'm assuming that guy was probably somewhat injured, but I remember this gun doing a tremendous amount of damage, which it kind of had to, because it has a 20-round magazine, which is very, very short for an LMG in any game. Ouch. But I was thinking about Battlefield 1. Well, I suppose I think about Battlefield 1 somewhat frequently, but definitely been on the mind recently due to the whole Battlefield Labs thing that's going on. New Battlefield coming out at some point in the foreseeable future. And I tend to go through these, I don't know what you'd call it, cycles, I guess, of basically cycling through like Battlefield 4, Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5. You know, I'll install one of them, play it for a little bit, uninstall it, install the next one, play that for a little bit, uninstall, and I kind of just work my way through those 3 games. And it's really nice to see Battlefield 1 have a player base still on PC. I'm not sure what it's like on console, where I used to play. I assume that there's people still playing, right? It's gotta be. You know, I think something that's really bummed me out about multiplayer gaming over the last decade or so is it becomes increasingly hard to play. Jesus, what is happening? How did I put the gas mask on? I don't remember. It's T, okay. It becomes increasingly difficult, I find, to play older multiplayer games, either because they've been shut down or because the player base is just not there. Or maybe they just don't hold up. In some cases, they just don't really hold up, and it's not... You know, you don't really have the best time as a tank at that location. This doesn't really matter. I just need to get in there. And see if I can take this guy out. Yeah, so it's always nice to be able to come back to something like Battlefield 1. and be able to hop in and just play for hours, and you know, just like it was 2017 again, 2018, that the initial run of this game before 5 came out. It's nice too because I think all of the servers that are up now are running all of the maps, original maps, DLC maps. I remember that being kind of a headache in the initial lifespan of this game, specifically because, if I remember correctly, when an expansion would come out, the only way to play those maps would be to play on servers that were just running those maps. And it was so hard to find a server that would run the maps with all of the other maps, because I think people had to just do that themselves. On console, that wasn't really much of a thing, if I remember correctly. Jesus. So it was a case where, like, you know, if I wanted to play the Russian DLC maps, I had to just play those maps and nothing else, and that was kind of annoying. Not even kind of annoying, that was super annoying. And then Battlefield 5 has something even stranger going on, where they've got... you're basically choosing to play the smaller maps or the bigger maps, and like those are the two playlists, basically, which... is kind of cool, I guess, if you have a preference either way, but for someone like me who doesn't have a preference either way, it's kind of annoying because I think one of the strengths of Battlefield is that you can... I'm not gonna win this, not gonna win this, not gonna win this, not gonna win this. Almost won it. I almost won it. One of the strengths of Battlefield is that you can have a lot of experiences with, you know, going from a gigantic map with a lot of vehicles, and then maybe the next match is a smaller map with no vehicles, and it kind of breaks up the pacing a bit, which I've always really liked. You know, I do generally think that Battlefield is at its best when it's those larger maps with vehicles, but I do think that this team has made some pretty amazing... That was... I have no excuses for that one. That was ridiculous. This team has made some absolutely amazing small maps, and it's nice to jump into those every now and then, and I think my problem with Battlefield 5 right now is that you kind of have to choose one or the other. No. Which, yeah, it's just kind of weird. I don't necessarily want to play 5 gigantic Battlefield maps in a row. You know, it's nice to throw in your Metro equivalent every now and then to kind of break it up. We need to do something here, because I don't want to fight in this... I don't want to fight in this hallway much longer than this. We're at a bit of a stalemate. It is a very close game. If we're able to break out of this, we could still win. The problem is that nobody wants to go around. What am I doing right now? 18 and 15? That's not too awful bad. Nobody else wants to do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make an effort. Someone spawned on me, and then he immediately turned in the other direction. I saw it on the map. Don't skip, don't skip, don't skip. We're on a mission, friends. We gotta go to D. No other choice. We have to do something. We have to do something, at least until we run into an artillery truck, and then it's all over. I always thought that Battlefield would benefit from just having kind of like a tactics tutorial that everybody has to complete before they jump into multiplayer. And I don't just mean like, oh, this is how you move forward, this is how you shoot the gun. Like, more of like, hey, this is what flanking is. This is what flanking is. This is what, you know, this is what a stalemate is. This is how you break out of a stalemate. Because there's no reason why we should just keep fighting. Look at all this empty space. Look at all of this room. Now, granted, they are watching it with tanks, but like that's just one of the things you gotta overcome. You gotta overcome. And I'm guilty of it too. I've been in this hallway for most of this match also, but you know, it's just one of those matches where team is not really focused on the broader goals at hand. But it happens. We're gonna end up losing this one, but it was close. It was very close. I'm not sure why it ended up being so close, because they do have most of the flags, but oh well. Amiens is an all-timer of a map. I'm very excited for this. Alright, so we're the Germans. Jumped back into the medic role for a bit. Got the Mondragon and a PO8. Mondragon, I believe, was a Mexican rifle that was intended for the Germans. I went into like a sort of deep dive in just like First World War history around the time that this game came out. It was this game and it was Dan Carlin's hardcore history series on the First World War that both kind of happened at the same time, and I got way into that stuff. You know, I grew up playing a lot of World War II shooters. It was a lot of, you know, Medal of Honor and Call of Duty. So I ended up I ended up getting my World War II fascination from video games, but then World War I was kind of untapped until the mid-2010s, when kind of came back into the public mind, I guess, in a way. Probably because we were getting into the 100-year, quote-unquote, anniversary, what have you, the centennial. Oh, it's not a good spot. That's not a good spot. Not a good spot. Can I reach you from here? I can. There we go. I think this was, for the most part, my favorite medic rifle when I was playing this back in the day. It's got a lot of power. I love the sound of it too. It just sounds crazy. Like, it's just a really loud report on this thing. Every trigger pull. Nope, 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 nope. It's definitely a case of just shoot at the icons when you see them. Let's switch it up. I don't think we have a support on the team. And I'm gonna go with the IMG. IMG? Wow, what was my favorite? What did I use? I used the IMG a lot. I also used the MG15 a lot. We'll go with the MG15. Let's go back to the old favorite. Good start. Spent a lot of time as a support in this game just sitting or laying down somewhere with the bipod on whatever weapon I was using and just letting it rip, basically. The guy's fully in my way. You know, some people definitely prefer the sort of hardcore mode in Battlefield games, and in part because it gets rid of those icons that makes, man, I can't get anybody from this spot. In part because it makes it, you kind of have to work for the kills a little bit more because you can't just shoot at the icons, but truthfully, I never really liked playing the hardcore modes in these games. Same with Call of Duty too. I don't know. I kind of just want the standard experience for the most part. I feel like it takes a little too much information away from me. That being said, for that hardcore type experience, I do highly recommend Hell Let Loose, which is not a World War I game, but it is a tremendous experience for that kind of thing. Using the IMG now, this quickly became one of my favorite weapons when this was added. I think in the Apocalypse expansion? Is that when this came in? Oh, this gun is not usable without the bipod on it. That's a little better. Is this a good time to reload? Let's try it. Let's sneak out of view while I do this. Wind up the rounds. Even with the bipod, I feel like this is still a pretty short-range LMG. Open the windows, aren't you? Oh, I hit someone. I hit someone at the very end there. There we go. Starting to pick up some kills now. Just needed to slow down a little bit, which is usually the case. No, God. The way that this gun will just rattle on the screen if you are not fully stable when firing it is crazy. Oh, you're laying down. Of course you are. Of course you are. Because you've got an LMG too. What else do we have? What else do we have here for the Germans? Could use the Madsen. I didn't like the Madsen all that much because that top side magazine just takes up so much space on the screen. I remember the Parabellum being pretty fun to use. I think this was the aircraft machine gun, right? One that they would mount in the passenger seat for the rear gunner. Of course, you can just run around with it in this game. There's nothing stopping you. Hi. Ooh, got some guys up ahead. There we go. Another one in that room. Looks like he might be sneaking his way over. Oh wait, you're right in front of me. Hi. I definitely thought he was a little bit further ahead than he ended up being. All kinds of bad stuff happening. This wall's gonna come down any second. Now, here's some munition for you. Another one of my favorite animations is this gun spinning the drum. This guy probably shouldn't get me. Probably shouldn't get me. Probably shouldn't get me, but he got me, and it worked out. I had my doubts, but it was okay in the end. Another thing I like about going... That's a lot of guys. Another thing I like about going back to this is... you know, this game came out right before two evolutions for multiplayer that I have a lot of mixed opinions about. One is definitely the live servicification, whatever you want to call it, of multiplayer that just kind of overran everything. It's nice to fire up a multiplayer shooter and not see a store, because you just don't see that anymore. And so there's that, and the other thing is that this came out just a few years before Modern Warfare 2019, which I think certainly did a lot of things for Call of Duty, but one of the things it did for shooters in general was this idea of, like, I like to call it the super sprint, which, you know, is in every Call of Duty now. It was in Battlefield 2042. I'm sure it's in other shooters. This idea that you have a sprint and then an additional layer of sprint above that, where you where everyone is just constantly running at, like, the speed of an automobile now. I feel like in a lot of these shooters. Granted, the sprint speed in this game is fairly quick, but there's just something about, like, multiplayer shooters now where I feel like every time I want to run somewhere, I have to double tap the sprint button now, because there's just that extra layer of sprint that you might as well use, because there's no reason not to. And it always looks so dumb. It looks so silly. You always stick your gun up in the air like a fool. I don't know. It's such a small thing. It's a small thing, right? Like, who cares? But I do like... I don't remember what the melee key was. F, there it is. I do like going back to an era of... Okay, this is not working. An era of shooters where, you know, you could kind of just... You just tap the sprint key and you move a little bit faster, and that was it. You didn't have to worry about... You didn't have to worry about double tapping it, doing a super sprint. You didn't have to worry about, like, you know, perks and other modifiers that would increase the speed of your super sprint. Tactical sprint, I think it's called, and sometimes. I guess the other thing, too, is I'm definitely from an era of multiplayer shooters just not being super quick in general. You know, I did not grow up with Quake and Unreal Tournament. You know, for me it was... The big initial ones for me were, like, Battlefield 2, Halo 3, and Call of Duty 4, which had a sprint button, but it was not the super fast tactical sprint. So I'm kind of used to multiplayer games, or I guess in some ways prefer multiplayer games to have a little bit of a measured pace to them, but you know, it's not a make or break thing for me. You know, I played a ton of Black Ops 6 last year, right? And that game is really friggin' fast. That game is faster even than it's faster than the Call of Duties that came before it, which were already really fast. Battlefield Premium, that was a thing too. That, you know, paid map packs, that was another constant in multiplayer shooters. For a good amount of time there, so you had to pay for those maps, and that created a lot of problems where people who didn't have those maps couldn't play those maps, and so if you were partying up with some friends to play Call of Duty or Halo or Battlefield and someone didn't have the maps, you were not going to play those maps. You were just out of luck. You know, that you ended up siloing off, you know, splintering the player base in a lot of weird ways, and that always sucked. That was such a huge bummer. But the thing I will say about that system, and especially as it pertains to Battlefield 1, was that you were guaranteed a big drop of maps. You know, 4 or 5 multiplayer maps that would come out all at once. And usually they were great. Like I remember map packs across Call of Duty and Battlefield games being pretty awesome across the board. And you know, there might be some new weapons that came with those, maybe some new vehicles. I can't get through here in the case of Battlefield. But it almost always felt worthwhile. And I know Call of Duty these days is on a pretty aggressive cadence for releasing new weapons and maps, but I know when like when Battlefield 5 came out and they no longer had map packs, it was this like really glacial drip feed of like a single map that would come out every 4 or 5 months or something. And it was just crazy, because I remember this game, you know, I think the first expansion had 4 maps, the Russian one I think had 5 maps, and then I think they went to 4 again, and then 3 for the last one, and added a ton of weapons, ton of vehicles. Granted, you know, this game, those expansions did not come out very quickly. I remember there was a pretty long delay, I think for the second DLC specifically. Maybe the first one as well, but you know, they were not. It was not like an every month or every 3 or 4 month thing. It was kind of slow, right? But to go from that to a system of like, you know, oh, there's one map coming out, and hopefully you like it because it's the only map that you're getting for several months. It just felt off. It felt off to me, you know. So I'm kind of curious to see like how they handle that with the next Battlefield game, because I feel like Battlefield 2042 never really had a chance to get that cadence down because they had to rework the maps and do so much to that game to get it back in a good state that it just didn't. You know, they were kind of in like repair mode on that game for a long time, and then, you know, the whole thing with battle passes is a whole other discussion on its own. I love the way the dust will kick up when you shoot a weapon on the ground like that. That's such a cool effect. But yeah, it's just, you know, it's one of those things, kind of like with the lack of a super sprint, where you jump into this game and it just feels a bit more comfortable. It feels like you're not being bombarded with seasonal updates and seasonal content, and oh, look at this stuff that's just been added, look at this stuff that's about to expire, so you better buy it now before it goes away. Simpler time, in a lot of ways a better time, I'm gonna say, but you know, things change, and it's not always for the worse. You just kind of have to find your spot in it, and I'm really glad that games that are from the before times are still able to be played. At least in some cases. Obviously, they're not all still around, but rest in peace, Overwatch 1. Maybe we'll play some Overwatch at some point. I should jump back into Overwatch, see what's happening over there. I think I'm going to keep this installed, though. I think we should play some more Battlefield. We should jump back into some BF1. Who knows? Maybe I'll get on that cycle again. We'll play some Battlefield 5 at some point, some 2042. We'll just keep jumping around. But I would like to spend some more hours in BF1, because you know what? It is the best Battlefield game. 100%.